Hey, happy 2026. Welcome back to Signature Style Systems. Today, I'm going to talk about how 44% of people make personality and style decisions completely differently and why you've probably never heard about this. So, my sister is ENTJ and I'm ENFJ. When you look at those two types and their four letters, you think, one letter apart, right? So you'd think that's a lot in common, but it's actually only half true. We make our decisions in completely opposite ways, and actually, it's caused some friction and hurt feelings in our lives. She makes decisions based on what's effective. I make decisions based on what gets everyone's needs met. Both of us are focused on managing things in our outer world, and both of us care deeply about people, but we're using entirely different judging criteria. And for the longest time, neither of us understood why. I really started digging into this when I went through personality hackers profiler training. And then I started asking the right questions. I discovered what changed everything in my understanding, which is that Myers-Briggs isn't just four letters. Those letters are actually a code. And when you crack that code, you find out how your mind is actually wired at the cognitive function level. Here's what most people don't know. There are two completely different ways to make decisions, and nearly half of us are using a process that's invisible to the majority culture. This is not about thinking versus feeling. So everyone uses both thinking and feeling to make decisions. But here's the key. Think of judging like a piece of reversible fabric positioned right at your skin, distinctly different on each side. One side faces outward. That's how you make decisions and manage things in the external world. The other side faces inward. That's how you decide what's important to you. For some people, feeling is facing out and thinking is facing in. For others, it's reversed. Thinking faces out and feeling faces in. It's the same fabric, but which side shows makes all the difference. So the two judging polarities are extroverted thinking with introverted feeling. These are people who make decisions in the outer world based on what's effective, what works, what gets results, what's efficient. Then they turn inward to process what's authentic to them, what aligns with their values, and what feels true. Extroverted feeling with introverted thinking. These are people who make decisions in the outer world based on context and getting people's needs met, what creates harmony, what's appropriate for the situation, and what builds connection. Then they turn inward to process through their own internal logic, what makes sense to them, what's structurally consistent. Both of these can be weighted more towards the inner process than the outer process. I'm explaining it with the outer process more prominent because that is the dynamic with me and my sister. So she uses inter or extroverted thinking. I use extroverted feeling. We're both extroverted judging dominance, which means we're both actively managing things in the outer world, but we're using completely different criteria. And here's what I want to be really clear about. This is not about thinkers not caring about people. My sister cares deeply about people. The reason she focuses on what's effective is just because that's what creates the most benefit for people. Effectiveness serves people. It's just a different route to the same destination. When I dug into the statistics, the most recent official data I could find, I discovered something surprising. For years, the internet has repeated the stats that INFJ is the rarest type and ISFJ is the most common. But the updated numbers that I found from the most recent MBTI handbook say, they tell a different story. When you add up, so I added up all the types by their dominant judging function. Um, Extroverted thinking is the most common, which is not surprising. That is, you are using metrics to make decisions and focusing on what works in the outer world, and that is kind of the culture that we're in. Introverted feeling is actually the next most common. And so together, people using extroverted thinking and introverted feeling together make up about 56% of the population. That means that people that use extroverted feeling and introverted thinking is actually the least common of the judging functions. But those of us who use their feeling extroverted and thinking introverted, that's my axis, make up about 44% of the population. So we're an invisible minority. And because most people don't understand cognitive functions, our differences often get misread as gender dynamics or just thinking versus feeling. But it's neither of those things. It's about which function is facing outward and which is facing inward. So once you understand the judging polarities, you start seeing them everywhere, including in how people approach their closets. I think extroverted thinking people often want to look tidy. Their style serves a purpose, it's a tool. They're asking, does this help me get things done? Does this work for the context I'm in? If the goal is moving up the career ladder, they look at people a couple rungs up and dress similarly. If the goal is getting physical work done, they choose practical clothes and comfortable shoes. So style is part of their strategy. Introverted feeling types, which overlaps with extroverted thinking, they want options that fit their mood. They need enough wardrobe variety to express different aspects of who they are. They're not concerned with meeting external expectations. They're concerned with being authentic with who they are. They might be drawn to styles that feel imperfectly beautiful or self-expressive. The question isn't what works, but does this feel like me right now? Or even, does this outfit support how I want to feel today? Extroverted feeling types make decisions based on context. You're never going to see one of them wearing something that's like completely inappropriate for the setting. They instinctively know what's appropriate, what invites connection, and what creates harmony. So they might dress thematically. I've done this where, like, when I go to a live theater performance, I want to wear something that's a little bit of a nod, not costumey, but a little bit of a nod to the theme of whatever the show is, or, Western if I'm going to a barbecue, or glamour for a night out. Highly aware of cultural and social norms and knowing when those norms are shifting and when it's okay to break the rules. Introverted thinking types are self-referential, and that often shows up as playfulness. Their style reflects their own internal logic, and they might gravitate toward a simple uniform that makes sense to them, like black t-shirt and black pants, or they might create a system like wearing shoes in the color of their hair so that every pair of shoes works with every outfit. There's often an intellectual coherence to their choices, even if it looks unconventional to others. Yeah, and like the playfulness, I have a friend who's a TI Dom who wears fun socks with every outfit. These aren't rigid boxes, they're just patterns. And when you understand your own judging polarity, you can stop wondering why somebody else does something and it doesn't work for you. Here's what happens when you don't know your judging polarity. You assume everyone makes decisions the way you do. Or worse, you would assume that the way you make decisions is wrong because it doesn't match what everybody else is doing. So if you're in the 44% using extroverted feeling and introverted thinking, so your type is going to end with FJ or TP if you're in that set, then you might have spent a lot of your life feeling like advice that works for other people just doesn't land for you. Maybe you've been told to just decide or stop overthinking or be more practical. The same is true in reverse. If you're using extroverted thinking and introverted feeling, you might find yourself confused by people who can't just look at the data and make a call. You might wonder, why does someone need so much relational processing? Or yeah, why do they need to keep talking about it? Just get on with it. Neither approach is better. They're just different, and both are necessary. I've been working on something behind the scenes. I'll have it hopefully out within a couple weeks of when this episode comes out, something that helps people understand why both polarities are necessary. So if you're thinking, okay, but which judging polarity do I actually use? And what does my four-letter code mean? That's what I cover in my free video masterclass, the Myers-Briggs Key to Signature Style. So you can find that link at my website, signaturestylesystems.com, or you can find it in the show notes for this episode. And then if you want to know your specific type, discover it through conversational profiling, not just an online test. That's what I do in the congruence code. So here's something simple you can do this week to integrate these principles. Think about the last time you had to make a decision. Could be anything from what to wear to a meeting to whether to take on a new project. And then walk back through your thought process. Were you primarily asking what's effective here? What fits the context and gets people's needs met? Were you checking in with your internal sense of authenticity, or were you working through the internal logic of the situation? Just notice, you, we don't want you to change anything. You don't have to change anything. Just start paying attention to which side of the fabric is facing outward for you. Thanks for being here for the Signature Style Systems podcast. Have fun being you, and I will meet you back here again real soon.